Hello everyone, welcome once again. In this video, I am going to discuss outline of Indian history from very ancient period to the present year, that is 2024. Understanding of this broad line development of Indian history is very much essential for a simplified and systematic learning of Indian history lessons. Before going into this discussion, I would like to discuss some basic terms related with history. History can be divided into three broad parts: ancient, medieval, and modern. Indian history too is divided into three parts. So, first part, as you know, that is ancient. Second part, medieval, and finally modern. So this is the earliest part in the history of India, and this is the latest development in Indian history. To understand history better, we have divided Indian history into ancient, medieval, and modern. Clear? So we will learn something more about some historical terms. For example, history. As I told you in the last video, it is a study of human past. Human past. But exactly, it is study of recorded or documented human past. That means the history means the study of documented human past. So there is one more term, prehistory. Prehistory. If this is documented human past, so what will be prehistory? Those periods in human past where there is no written documents or there is no documentation of these people, so no written documents. So this is prehistory. So between history and prehistory, there is a term that is known as proto-history. Proto-history. What does that mean? I think now you can imagine. So if history is documented human past and prehistory is human past with no written documents, so this will be something in between. That is those part in history where we have written evidences but we could not read it. Okay, so those periods in human past where we have written documents but we could not read and understand what is written in those documents. Clear? So we have learned three basic terms related to history. First is ancient history, that is earliest part in any history, and second is medieval. So the period after the ancient stage, and finally that is modern. So three broad division in history, and next we understood what is the definition of history. History means the study of documented human past. So obviously there is a term, there is a stage known as prehistory where the human settlement had been there but they did not have the knowledge of the art of writing. So in between this history and prehistory, there is a term called or a stage called proto-history. That means a stage in human past where we have written documents, written evidences, but we could not read or understand those writings. I hope these six terms are very clear to you. So these terms are very much essential when we go further in our discussion. So in this discussion, we will be combining geography and chronology as we discussed in the last class to understand historical development in a systematic manner. So the earliest period is known as Paleolithic period. So this is the earliest stage in human history. So dating back to 10 lakh BC to 10,000 BC. So 10 lakh to 10,000 BC. So this is the earliest stage in human past, and we are going to discuss the Indian history from Paleolithic stage to the year 2024. So this was the period when human beings had been living as wanderers, and they were using stone tools. So here lithic means stone, paleo means old. So that means old stone age. So Paleolithic thus means the old stone age, the earliest stage in human history, and the period is from 10 lakh BC to 10,000 BC. So next stage is Mesolithic. Here again there is a term lithic, that means stone. So meso means middle. So that means middle stone age. This is roughly from 10,000 BC to 6,000 BC. 10,000 BC to 6,000 BC. So here these people had been using stone tools and implements that were very small. So these stone tools and implements used by Mesolithic people were called as microliths. Microliths. So next stage in human evolution was Neolithic. So that was from 6,000 BC. So here Neo means new, lithic means stone. So we understand that in all the three stages, so there is a term called lithic. That means all these people had been using tools and implements made of stones. So earliest stage, so that was not polished stone tools and implements. Second stage, so little bit polishing, but were small stone tools and implements. But here, well polished stone tools and implements were used by these people to hunt animals and to survive. Thus, so earliest stages are Paleolithic, Mesolithic, and Neolithic. So Paleolithic starting from 10 lakh BC and ending up to 10,000 BC. This was also the stage Pleistocene period, that means Ice Age. So this was the same period, that is Ice Age was in existence. So when Paleolithic people had been living on the surface of the earth. So next stage, as we have seen, that is Middle Stone Age. People started polishing their stone tools and implements, but they were small in size, so we call it as microliths. Next stage of human evolution was Neolithic stage, when people started polishing their stone tools and implements very well. So this is known as New Stone Age or Neolithic stage. So these people had been living in this area, northwestern part of India, and so first metal to be used in India was copper. That was discovered by Indians, and now they use these copper tools and implements along with these lithic stone tools and implements, lithic tools and implements. So this is known as chalco or chalcolithic. So chalco means copper, lithic means stone, chalcolithic. I hope you are able to follow. So after this stage, Neolithic stage, human beings discovered the first metal in India, that is copper, and they used these copper tools and implements along with the existing stone tools and implements. So this stage is known as chalcolithic stage. So chalco means copper, lithic means stone. So copper plus stone age, copper plus stone tools and implements using stage is known as chalcolithic. So we can say that it's around 4000 BC. So this happened in Indian history. So we have seen different stages, the ancient or initial stages in Indian history, that is Paleolithic, Mesolithic, Neolithic, and next is Chalcolithic. So we can put it in time scale. So this is Paleo, this is Meso, this is Neo. So this is 10 lakh to 10,000 BC. This is from BC to around 6000 BC, and this is from 6000 BC to around 4000 BC. So here, in the northwestern part of India, Neolithic communities began to emerge by 6000 BC, and they started cultivating, they started agriculture. So, in human history, Neolithic people were the earliest agrarian communities. They were the earliest people who practiced agriculture. So, because of the fact, they were also the first settled communities. Till then, people had been wanderers. Neolithic men were the earliest settlers, settlers, settlers in India. So they started engaging in agriculture and they started settling down in this area. And in the course of their development, they happened to discover copper and they started using these copper tools and implements. And as we saw it in the last video, this region is very fertile because of so many rivers flowing through this area. Most important is river Indus. River Indus or river Sindhu. Then so many other rivers like Jhalam, Chenab, Ravi, Satluj and so flowing through this area and depositing alluvial soil being deposited in this area, making this area very fertile. It is in this area these people started settling down and engaging in agriculture and creating surplus, agrarian surplus. This surplus enabled them to exchange their agrarian surplus, leading to trade and commerce. Leading to trade and commerce. So trade and commerce obviously led to urban life. So, simply put it in other words, so the Neolithic people who had been practicing agriculture in the fertile river valleys of northwestern part of India, they produced agrarian surplus, which enabled them to exchange their agrarian surplus, leading to trade and commerce, and this trade and commerce leading to urbanization or urban growth. So by 3000 BC, so when we look at here, by 3000 BC, they developed, by 3000 BC, they developed a urban civilization we call as Indus Valley civilization. Indus Valley civilization. In the northwestern part of India, so by 3000 BC, a civilization that is urban in nature developed what we call as Indus Valley civilization. This is also known as Harappan civilization because Harappa was the first site of Indus Valley civilization to be discovered in 1921. Since then, we call this civilization as Indus Valley civilization, otherwise Harappan civilization, because it was on the banks of river Indus. Majority of the settlements were located, and for the first time, we happen to discover Harappa as that of Indus Valley civilization. So, Indus Valley civilization is otherwise known as Harappan civilization for the fact that this was the first site to be discovered as that of Indus Valley civilization. And what was the period? 3000 BC to 1500 BC. So, Indus Valley civilization flourished in northwestern part of Indian subcontinent from 3000 BC to 1500 BC. Okay, and they had the knowledge of, or they know the art of writing. So we have large number of evidences like sealings, and other materials on which they have written their communication. So they know the art of writing, but we could not read it. We could not read their script. So we classify it as proto-historic period. Proto-history or proto-historic period. So make it a little bit clear. So I told you Paleolithic, Mesolithic, Neolithic, Chalcolithic people, they did not live or they did not know the knowledge of writing. They did not know the art of writing or reading. So we haven't got any evidences to show that they have the knowledge of writing or reading. So we call it as prehistoric people or prehistory. These stages are known as prehistory. Then when we move to Indus Valley civilization, we call it as proto-historic people or period because they know the art of writing, but we could not read and understand what they have written. I told you in the beginning, prehistory means period in human past where we do not have any written material or documentation of those people about whom we study. And proto-history is that period in human history where we have documents of those people, but we could not read and understand what they are trying to say. Clear? So by 1500 BC, so Harappan civilization or Indus Valley civilization declined. It was at this time or by this time a new group of people called as Aryans started arriving in the same area where Indus Valley people had been living. So this area, so Aryans started living by 1500 BC, and these Aryans gave birth to Vedic culture. Vedic culture. So we are learning a new stage in Indian history, that is Vedic culture or Aryan culture, initiated by Aryans who happened to reach Indian subcontinent by 1500, and it went up to 600 BC, and by 600 BC they had expanded to eastern part of India up to present day Bihar and Bengal. So this is known as Aryan expansion to eastern direction. So this Vedic culture can be divided into two parts. So first, as I told you, 1500 they started reaching here, and by 600 they reached up to eastern part of India. So this can be divided into two. First 500 years is known as Rig Vedic period. Rig Vedic period, and this is known as later Vedic period. Right? So here, so they wrote, Aryans who happened to reach India by 1500 BC, they composed the earliest book in India, that is Rig Veda, so in Sanskrit language. Sanskrit. So now we know Sanskrit language, so we can read and understand what is described in Rig Veda. So we enter into historic period with a Rig Vedic period, that is 1500 BC. So from 1500 to 1000 BC, Aryans who had been living in this area, they composed the earliest book that is written in Sanskrit known as Rig Veda. So with this period, we enter into historic period because we can understand, we can read and understand what is being discussed in the book called Rig Veda. And the Aryan settlement during this Rig Vedic period, this region was known as Sapta Sindhu region. SAPTA, Sapta Sindhu. Aryans called the river Indus as Sindhu, and this region they lived began to be known as Sapta. Sapta means 7. So Indus and other 6 tributaries here, that is Sapta, 7 rivers of northwestern part of India, that is Indus, Jhelum, Chenab, Ravi, Satluj, Beas and Saraswati. River Saraswati. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Indus, Jhelum, Chenab, Ravi, Satluj, Saraswati and Beas. So 7 rivers. So Sapta Sindhu region was the region that is northwestern part of India in the present day Punjab, both of India and Pakistan, it was here the early Aryans or Rigvedic Aryans started living in. During the next period, that is later Vedic period, they started moving eastwards. So 1000 BC to 600 BC, this is known as later Vedic period. It is during this period Aryans wrote other Vedic books, other three Vedas, that is Samaveda, Yajurveda, and Atharva Veda, plus Brahmanas, Aranyakas, and Upanishads. During this period, from 1000 BC to 600 BC, Aryans expanded to eastern direction. Simultaneously, they composed other books, other Vedic books known as Samaveda, Yajurveda, Atharva Veda, and other three corpus of books known as Brahmanas, Aranyakas, and Upanishads. So this is from 1000 BC to 600 BC. So once again, this area was very fertile. So this is river Ganga and this is Yamuna. This region is known as a Doab region. Doab region. So this area, Aryans expanded, began to be known as Aryavarta. 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 In the later Vedic period, from 1000 BC to 600 BC, Aryans moved eastern direction and started settling down in the region known as Aryavarta, that is present day northern Uttar Pradesh and Bihar region. Right. So once again, this area was very fertile, and this enabled them to cultivate surplus agriculture, surplus agrarian products, leading to development, emergence of urban centers. By 600 BC, there was another second urbanization taking place in India, that was in Indo-Gangetic plain. The first urbanization was in Indus Valley civilization period, and the second urbanization now taking place in Indo-Gangetic region, that is Aryavarta region, by 1000 BC to 600 BC. This is how, when we put it in chronological area, this is again 3000 BC to 1500, that is Indus Valley civilization, and 1500 to 1000 is Rigvedic period, and from 1000 BC to 600 BC is later Vedic period. I hope you understood what we have discussed so far. As a recap, I would explain once again. So earliest stage was Paleolithic, during which people had been using stone tools and implements, and the next stage was Mesolithic. During this period, people had been using very small tools and implements, once again made of stones. So these tools and implements are known as microliths. And next stage was Neolithic, during which people started polishing their stone tools and implements. Next stage is Chalcolithic, during which first metal to be used in India, copper, began to be used by these settlers, and this period is known as Chalcolithic. But all these people did not have knowledge of writing, so we classify these people as prehistoric people. Next come Indus Valley civilization, that is from 3000 BC to 1500 BC. These people settled in the valleys of river Indus and other rivers in northwestern part of India. So we call it as Indus Valley civilization. These people lived, majority of their population had been living in urban centers, so we call it as urban civilization. And moreover, they knew art of writing and reading. We got lot many seals and other inscriptions of Indus Valley people, but so far we were not able to decipher or read and understand what they wanted to communicate. So even though Indus Valley people knew writing and reading, as we could not understand what they have written, we classify Indus Valley civilization as proto-historic period. On the declining stage of Indus Valley civilization, a new group of people started reaching or intruding into India, these were Aryans. They settled in the same area, that is northwestern part of Indian subcontinent, and this area they began to call as Sapta Sindhu region, 7 rivers of northwestern part of India. And this culture, these people, Aryans gave birth, began to be called as Vedic culture because the first Veda, that is Rig Veda, was written during this period from 1500 to 1000. Now we know to read and understand what is written in Rig Veda. So with the Rig Vedic period, we enter into historic period in Indian history. So we have seen prehistoric period, we have seen proto-historic period, now we are seeing historic period. So it is from Rig Veda we Indians entered into historic period. And during the next 400 years, from 1000 BC to 600 BC, Aryans expanded further towards eastern direction and settled in Indo-Gangetic plain, that is the present northern part of India, where Ganga Yamuna is located. So here, this area they began to call as Aryavarta, and they started creating agrarian surplus once again in a very fertile land, fertilized by so many rivers in this region. So they could produce surplus and they could once again repeat what happened in Indus Valley period. So the surplus enabled them to exchange their goods. This exchange of goods leading to trade and commerce leading to urbanization. So second urbanization in Indian history took place by the period 600 BC in the northern part of India. This is what we discussed so far. I hope you are able to follow this development very clearly. If you have followed very clearly, we will move on to next stages. Now we are going to learn some more basic terms, that is Jana, Janapada and Maha Janapada. When Aryans settled in northwestern part of India, that is Sapta Sindhu region, Aryans had been known as, Aryan tribal groups had been known as Janas. And Bharata was one of the Janas of Rigvedic period, and India gets its name from this tribal group of the Rigvedic times. So similarly, we have a term called India. India, our country is also known as India, that is originated from the river Indus. So two names of our country, that is Bharata and India, had been derived during this period. One from river Indus, second from one of the tribes of Rigvedic period, that is Bharatas. So these Janas, during their expansion towards east, started settling down in this area, Indo-Gangetic region, and this began to be known as Janapadas, the settled region. So here, Aryan tribals were not settlers, they were wanderers, but now Aryans started settling down, so giving this region a particular name called Janapada. And by 600 BC, these Janapadas began to be amalgamated together, creating larger states, now began to be known as Maha Janapadas, great Janapadas. So from Janas of Rigvedic period to Janapadas of later Vedic period, Maha Janapadas of by 600 BC. So these Maha Janapadas were representatives of early states in India, early states. So Mahajanapadas, 16, there were 16 Mahajanapadas, and these were the examples of early states in Indian history. So if you get a question in any examination, which were the earliest states in India, so these were 16 Mahajanapadas, not Janas or Janapadas, but Mahajanapadas were the earliest states in India. So there were 16 in number. So spread across eastern to northwestern part of India, Anka, Magadha, Kashi, so and so here, Gandhara. In between there were so many other Mahajanapadas. Total 16 Mahajanapadas were there by 600 BC in Indian history. From 600 BC to 300 BC. This period is known as post-Vedic period. Post-Vedic period. So Vedic literature had been written. So the period after Vedic composition is known as post-Vedic period. During this period, some very important developments took place in Indian history. So as I told you, that is second, urbanization. Second, urbanization. And early states formation, early states being formed in the form of Mahajanapadas, and emergence of large number of religions known as such as Buddhism, Jainism, etc. So three very important developments taking place in post-Vedic period, that is from 600 BC to 300 BC. These were emergence of cities in Indo-Gangetic region, and second is emergence of territorial states. We call it as Mahajanapadas. And third important development was emergence of large number of religions, of which most important were Buddhism and Jainism. Right? So from 300 BC to 200 BC, so we call this period as Mauryan period. Mauryan period. The period of Mauryan Empire. Period of Mauryan Empire. This was the first empire in Indian history. Thus, Mauryan Empire was the first empire in Indian history. So, this Mauryan period is roughly from 300 BC to 200 BC. So, exactly it is from 321 BC, Mauryan period started, and it ended by 184 BC. But for better broad understanding, we round it off to 300 BC to 200 BC. So, here Chandragupta Maurya, Bindusara, and Ashoka. So such rulers ruled during this period over a very vast territory. So we call it as an empire. So Mauryans built up with their capital Padaliputra in present day Patna in Bihar. So name of Padaliputra now is Patna in Bihar. So this was their capital, basing at Padaliputra. So Mauryans constructed a big state. Now we call it as Mauryan Empire, and it extended from, or it existed from 321 BC to 184 BC. So next stage in history is 200 BC to 300 AD. Last video I explained what does BC means and what does AD means. So here now we are entering into AD. So total 500 years. This period is known as post-Mauryan period. Post-Mauryan period. During this period, a centralized vast empire called Mauryan Empire declined, and in its place large number of states emerged. For example, in Padaliputra region, Sunga and Kanno, two dynasties succeeded Mauryans in Padaliputran region, and in Orissa region, Kalinga state came under Kharavela of Kalinga ruled present day Orissa region, and Deccan region was ruled by Shatavahana dynasty. And in extreme south, this period is known as Sangam period. Sangam in Tamil language means an assembly. So it was during this period an assembly of poets and scholars took place in South India, and this period is known as Sangam period. So during this period, Chera, Chola and Pandya, three dynasties ruled South India, and in northwestern parts there had been a series of invasions by Indo-Greeks, Shagas, Parthians and Kushanas. So the picture is in contrast with that of Mauryan Empire. In place of a single all India empire, large number of small states replaced the Mauryan Empire in post-Mauryan period. That is northwestern India being attacked and ruled by large number of foreign groups, Indo-Greeks, Shagas, Parthians and Kushanas. In the Pataliputra region, Sunga and Kanna in successively ruling this area. In Orissa region, Kalinga, Orissa was known as Kalinga, this region being ruled by Kharavela, and Deccan region being ruled by a dynasty called Shadavahana, and extreme south is being ruled by Sangam dynasties known as Chera, Chola and Pandya. This is what the picture of post-Mauryan period, and by the end of this post-Mauryan period, that is 300 AD to 550 AD, this period is known as Guptan period. Guptan period. It was during this period, once again, a big state was built up by a new dynasty known as Gupta dynasty. Gupta dynasty. So by around again, once again, this is around about 320 AD, they started their dynasty. So we round it off to 300 AD for better understanding. So Guptan period is roughly from 300 AD to 550 AD. So Chandragupta, Samudragupta, Chandragupta II, and some other rulers ruled during this period. And after this period, from 550 to 750, so ancient India, we started declining. Once again, in place of a centralized empire, large number of states emerging in India, leading to feudalism. Feudalism, a land-based socio-economic and political system began to emerge in India by the end of Gupta period. Okay, and with this we enter into medieval history. So fundamental changes taking place in socio-economic and political life in India, and with this we enter into medieval Indian history. Okay, so India was being divided into large number of smaller states. It was at this time India being attacked once again by foreigners. Now, a person called Mahmud of Ghazni. Ghazni is a region in present-day Afghanistan. He was a ruler in this area. He heard about India's wealth. India was very rich at that time. So this foreign ruler thought of invading and robbing India of its wealth. So he started his raid 1001 AD and it continued up to 1026 AD. So he conducted more than 17 raids, plundering raids into India. He plundered riches of India, including India's temples and other monasteries, and took back wealth to his native place called Ghazni, Mahmud of Ghazni. So this invasion continued, as I told you, more than 17 times. Even after that, Indians were not able to find out a solution to these invaders, and taking this opportunity, another foreigner, Muhammad Ghori, another foreigner named Muhammad Ghori, once again from Afghanistan region, he started making intrusions to India, and in 1191 he fought a battle known as First Battle of Tharain in 1191 against Prithviraj Chauhan. What happened? In 1191, a foreigner called Muhammad Ghori invaded India, but an Indian ruler called Prithviraj Chauhan, a Rajput ruler, defeated this Muhammad Ghori at the First Battle of Tharain. This battle is known as First Battle of Tharain. It took place in 1191. Right, the Tharain is near Karnal, North India. This Tharain battlefield is located present-day Karnal region, and in this battle, Muhammad Ghori was defeated, but he escaped from India. The very next year, 1192, he came back and he met Prithviraj Chauhan in the second battle of Tharain. The same battlefield, but years are different. The very next year, he came back and fought a battle against Prithviraj Chauhan, that is 1192, second battle of Tharain, in which Prithviraj Chauhan was defeated and killed by this foreign invader known as Muhammad Ghori. Clear? Now Muhammad Ghori captured this much region and annexed this region to his empire, and he appointed his deputies to rule this much area, that is northwestern part of India, to be ruled under his name. I repeat, Muhammad Ghori was a foreign invader who invaded India in 1191, but in that attempt he was defeated by an Indian ruler named Prithviraj Chauhan. This battle is known as First Battle of Tarain in 1191. But Muhammad Ghori could escape from India. He went back to his native place. The very next year he came back with a reinforced army. He defeated Prithviraj Chauhan in another battle, that is Second Battle of Tarain in 1192, and he killed Prithviraj Chauhan and he captured his territories, and he appointed his officers to look after administration in this region. But in 1206, Muhammad Ghori was killed by some of his enemies, and his deputy in India, that is Qutbuddin Aibak, one of his slaves, one of these military commanders of Muhammad Ghori, Qutbuddin Aibak, declared independence of this much territories. Muhammad Ghori's Indian territories were being declared independent by his deputy Qutbuddin Aibak after the death of his master Muhammad Ghori. In 1206, thus started Delhi Sultanate. So we enter into another stage in Indian history, that is known as Delhi Sultanate. It extended from 1206, that is from 1206, in year in which Qutbuddin Aibak declared an independent state based at Delhi. Delhi was the capital, and it went up to 1526. So 1206 to 1526, this period is known as the period of Delhi Sultans. Sultans were the titles of Islamic rulers, and Delhi was their capital. So this period of Muslim rulers based at Delhi began to be known as the period of Delhi Sultans, and period is from 1206 to 1526, during which different dynasties, first slave dynasty, second Khalji dynasty, third Tughlaq dynasty, fourth Said dynasty, and finally Lodi dynasties. So 5 dynasties ruled India, or especially northern part of India. First was slave dynasty, second was Khalji dynasty, Tughlaq, Said and Lodi during this period from 1206 to 1526. Okay. So it was in the year 1526, another foreigner. So India had been, by this much discussions, you would have come across, India had been attacked in historical time period by many invaders. So here once again, one more invasion taking place now, Babur. Another Central Asian from a place called Farghana. He thought of trying his luck by invading India. He reached northern part of India, and Delhi was being ruled by Ibrahim Lodi. This Babur, foreigner, defeated Ibrahim Lodi in the first battle of Panipat in 1526, and he defeated and killed Ibrahim Lodi, and Babur declared establishment of a new dynasty in India, which is known as Mughal dynasty, Mughals. And this Mughal rule went up to 1857. 1526 to 1857, dynasty started by Babur ruled India, and this period we call it as Mughal period. I hope this much you are able to follow very clearly. We'll go for a recap now from the beginning of our discussion up to 1526. So this is the time scale, and this I told you, Paleolithic, next was Mesolithic, next was Neolithic. So 3 lithic stages. Next was Indus Valley civilization. Next was Rig Vedic period. Next was later Vedic period, and this was post-Vedic period. Post-Vedic. Next was Mauryan period. Mauryan period. Post-Mauryan period. Post-Mauryan period. And next is Guptan period. So, this is the earliest stage, next stage, next stage. So, we reach up to Guptan period. When we continue this discussion, so 1001 AD, so Mahmud of Ghazni started his raids into India, and 1191 was the period or the year in which first battle of Tarain took place, and 1192 second battle of Tarain, and 1206 once after the death of Muhammad Ghori, his slave commander in India, that is Qutbuddin Aibak, declared his independence and started a dynasty known as Slave Dynasty. So from 1206 to 1526, this period is known as period of Delhi Sultanate or the period of Delhi Sultans, during which different dynasties like Slave Dynasty, Khalji, Tughlaq, Said and Lodhis ruled India. Right? By the end of this period, in 1526, another foreigner, that is Babur, invaded India and defeated and killed ruler of Delhi, Ibrahim Lodi. And Babur established his new dynasty known as Mughal Dynasty. Mughal Dynasty. Up to which we have discussed. I hope this much is very much clear to you. The remaining portions we will be discussing in the next video. Thank you.